Opening in the silence, we begin to see there was a time in my life when I believed more was better. More books, more work, more noise, more speed. I filled my schedule like a warrior stacking armor, thinking I was preparing for battle, when, in truth, I was only numbing myself. I surrounded myself with tasks, people, and distractions. Until one morning, I sat in a cafe and couldn't even taste the coffee in my hand. The world was loud, but I was empty. Was my turning point. I picked up a small worn-out book. It wasn't thick, no glowing cover, just a simple title, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And in one sentence, I found a mirror. Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. It stopped me because it wasn't just philosophy. It was a confrontation, a challenge to the life I was living. We live in an age of abundance, of options, of endless scrolling. Yet the more we consume, the more we seem to hunger. We chase meaning in excess, and forget that clarity often comes not from adding more but from removing what's unnecessary. The Stoics knew this. They lived in a world not so different from ours, crowded with noise, power struggles, temptations, ambitions, but their path was radical in its simplicity. Simplicity, for them, was not poverty. It wasn't self-denial for the sake of suffering, it was freedom. Freedom from needing what doesn't matter. Freedom to think, to feel, to live with intention. Today, we begin a journey. A quiet one, not loud or flashy, but powerful in its depth. Together we'll uncover what it means to live simply the Stoic way. We'll walk beside the emperors and the exiles, the philosophers and the forgotten. We'll hear stories from ancient times and from my own life, not to escape the world, but to see it more clearly. Because what if the life you're searching for isn't in the next achievement, but in less? What if meaning doesn't come from how much we have but how deeply we live? This isn't minimalism for show. It's not about having fewer things for the sake of appearances. It's a philosophy of essence, of stripping life down to its truth. And that is where the Stoic secret begins. Not in grand gestures, but in the quiet decision to want less, to choose better, to go deeper. Stay with me. In the stillness ahead, there is something waiting, more, but something deeper. Simplicity as strength, the inner power of having less. When we hear the word simplicity, we often think of absence, less stuff, fewer distractions, quieter spaces. But the Stoics saw simplicity not as what's missing, but as what's finally allowed to shine. That it's not about stripping life bare, it's about uncovering what truly matters beneath the clutter. Let me tell you a story. Epictetus was born a slave, crippled in one leg, owned by a cruel Roman master. And yet, even in bondage, he said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Think about that. How could someone with nothing, no wealth, no status, not even physical freedom, speak of mastery? What kind of strength allows a man in chains to feel untouchable? It was the power of simplicity. The power of a mind unburdened by illusion. Epictetus had been stripped of everything external, but what remained the core of his character was unshakable. He chose to see the truth that most people spend their lives running from. That peace doesn't come from what you own, but from what you own about yourself. He didn't crave comfort or luxury, he craved clarity, and in that clarity he became free. Now let's shift to another Stoic, Seneca. Unlike Epictetus, Seneca had everything. He was a wealthy Roman senator, advisor to emperors, a man surrounded by gold and politics. But even he wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." Seneca practiced a ritual that many would call strange today. Each month, for a few days, he would live with the bare minimum: cheap clothes, simple food, sleeping on the floor, not because he had to, but because he wanted to remind himself, "I can live with less. I do not depend on luxury." This was not self-punishment. It was training. training the mind to distinguish need from desire, to build inner resilience, to find peace in simplicities, so that when life changed, he would not fall apart. That is the Stoic paradox. The man who lives simply lives most strongly. Because when you don't need much, nothing can be taken from you. When your peace is rooted within, no storm can uproot it. Let me ask you something. What in your life right now feels heavy? What do you chase because you think it will finally make you feel complete? And what would happen if you stopped? Stopped chasing, stopped comparing, stopped piling on Mirand instead. Peeled back everything until only what matters remains. You don't have to become a monk. You don't have to give away all your belongings or retreat to a mountain. But you do have to ask, what is essential? And more importantly, what is not? Simplicity is not about having less, it's about needing less. It's not about us, about clarity, and it's not about withdrawal, it's about freedom. In my own life, I used to think that busyness was proof of purpose. If I was working non-stop, I must be important. If I was surrounded by noise, I must be doing something right. But the truth, I was afraid of stillness, because in stillness, I had to face myself. The Stoics taught me that strength isn't measured in volume, it's measured in presence, in your ability to sit with yourself with no distractions and feel whole. Not because the world approves, but because your conscience does start. So what would happen if today you made one choice to remove one thing that's not essential, one obligation, one possession, one expectation? Would you feel lighter? Would you begin to sense perhaps for the first time that less truly can lead to more? That's the Stoic secret, not a rejection of life's beauty but a refinement of it, not emptiness but space, and in that space you begin to live, not wider but deeper. Stillness amid chaos, how the Stoics found peace without escaping the world. Picture this. You are Emperor of Rome, the most powerful man in the known world. Every decision you make ripples across continents. Armies wait for your command. Senators seek your favor. Enemies scheme in the shadows. Friends betray you with smiles. That was the daily reality of Marcus Aurelius. And yet, somehow amid the noise, the power, the politics, and the wars, he found stillness. Not in a temple, not on a mountaintop, but within himself. How? Because Marcus understood a simple truth. The world will always be chaotic, but your mind doesn't have to be. Nowhere, he wrote, can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. He didn't run away from duty. He didn't escape the world. He stood in the center of it and remained centered. This is what separates Stoic simplicity from escapism. Simplicity is not the refusal to engage with the world. It is the refusal to be consumed by it. Let me tell you a story from my own life. I once believed peace required perfect conditions. If I could just clear my schedule, declutter my home, reduce my emails, unplug from the noise, then I thought I could find stillness. And so I tried. I took a weekend off. I turned off notifications. I made tea and lit candles. And still, my mind raced. It wasn't the world that was noisy, it was me. That's when the Stoics began to make sense. They didn't wait for the world to grow quiet. They built a fortress within a place where the opinions of others lost their grip, where desires no longer dictated choices, where time, even in chaos, slowed down. Marcus ruled an empire, yet each night he returned to his journal. In those pages, he asked himself, what am I clinging to that is not necessary? What judgment is causing my suffering? What part of today did I waste on things outside my control? He simplified not his empire, but his thinking, and that's the lesson for us. Simplicity begins not on your desk or in your closet, but in your thoughts. Ask yourself, how many of your worries come from imaginary futures? How much of your anxiety is borrowed from the expectations of others. How many decisions are made from fear of missing out, rather than joy of missing nothing? The Stoics didn't chase quiet lives, they created quiet minds. And from that space, they made better choices, wiser responses. They could walk into storms and remain still. Imagine what that would feel like in your life. You wake up to bad news, but instead of panic, you breathe. Someone criticizes you, but instead of anger, you observe. Your plans change, but instead of collapse, you adapt. This isn't magic, it's training. Training your mind to return to simplicity, to cut through mental clutter like a sword, to return to the present moment, not later, but now. There's a practice I use often, inspired by Marcus. In moments of overwhelm, I stop and ask, is this essential? Not just with things, but with emotions. Is this fear essential? Is this frustration necessary? Is this expectation serving me? Often the answer is no. And in that no, I return to myself. Simplicity is not about being indifferent. It's about being intentional. And in that intention we find the stillness that Stoics held sacred. Stillness not as a luxury, but as a necessity. Not for a few moments, but as a way of life. You don't need to rule an empire to feel overwhelmed, but you don't need to escape it either. You only need to remember, peace is not found in the absence of chaos, but in your ability to remain undisturbed within it. Discipline of desire, learning to want less. There's a quiet hunger inside all of us. It whispers, sometimes shouts, more, just a little more, a better job, a newer phone, a bigger house. Don't we rarely pause to ask, why do I want this? And even more rarely, do I really need it? The Stoics understood this hunger not as evil, but as dangerous if left unchecked, because unchecked desire is a form of slavery. Epictetus said it plainly. Freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it. That statement shook me the first time I read it. It went against everything I'd been taught. We're told to chase dreams, indulge ambition, follow desire. But what if those desires are the very chains that bind us? Let me tell you a story from my own life. There was a season when I was constantly upgrading my work tools, my wardrobe, even my coffee. I convinced myself I was investing in quality. But beneath that, I was chasing a feeling, a sense of arrival, of being enough. But here's the truth. I never arrived. Every upgrade only sharpened the hunger for the next one, until one day, I asked myself, if this desire never ends, when do I actually live? The Stoics would say, you begin to live the moment. You discipline your desire. Not kill it, not fear it, but train it like a wild animal that can either tear you apart or walk beside you in peace. Seneca once warned, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor. This poverty of the soul, this endless wanting, the enemy of the simple life. So how do we escape it? Not by running away, but by practicing voluntary discomfort, a core Stoic discipline. Seneca, as you may recall, would sleep on the floor, eat coarse bread, wear rough clothing, not because he had to, but because he wanted to remind himself, I am not owned by comfort, I can live with less. This was preparation, a return to the essential, a way to tame desire before it became a master. We can do the same today. Maybe you fast for a day, maybe you go a week, without buying anything unnecessary. Maybe you leave your phone at home for an evening. Not to prove a point, but to prove you are still in control. And here's where it becomes truly powerful. Once you stop craving more, you begin to see what you already have. Gratitude is born, presence returns, and the simple life becomes not just possible but beautiful. I remember once standing in my small kitchen, drinking black coffee, no music, no noise, And for the first time in weeks, I felt peace, because I wasn't chasing anything. I was just there, fully, quietly, gratefully. This is the Stoic ideal: to live simply, to want little, to find joy not in things, but in being. And this doesn't mean giving up ambition, it means aligning it with virtue, not vanity, with depth, not display, because when desire is unchecked, it leads to distraction. But when desire is disciplined, it leads to meaning. Think of a river. When it floods, it destroys, but when it's channeled, it gives life. Your desires are the same. Unfocused, they drown your peace. Focused, they nourish your purpose. So, the next time you find yourself reaching, ask, I need this, or have I just forgotten how to be content? Because maybe the real secret to happiness isn't getting more, maybe it's needing less. And that's where the Stoic path turns from philosophy into freedom. Not freedom from the world, but from the tyranny of your own wanting. Time and attention, the true wealth of the simple life. There is one currency we all possess equally, regardless of age, status, or wealth. And yet it is the one most often wasted, traded carelessly, or stolen without our notice. Time. Ask yourself this: if someone robbed you of your wallet, you would be furious. But how often do we let people land worse? Our own habits steal hours from our lives, and we say nothing. The Stoics believed time, not gold, not land, was our most precious possession, because, unlike money, time cannot be earned back. Seneca wrote in his timeless essay on the shortness of life, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." When I first read that, I closed the book and sat in silence, because I saw myself in those words. I wasn't living. I was rushing, multitasking, overcommitted, checking boxes. I was always busy, but rarely present. And the tragedy is, I thought this made me productive, successful even, but in truth, I was bankrupted in money. But in meaning, let me share a memory. One afternoon I sat in a park with an old friend I hadn't seen in years. The sun was low, the breeze gentle, but while he spoke, I caught myself checking my phone again and again, and when he left, I realized I hadn't really heard him. I was there in body, but my attention was scattered, divided, spent. That was the moment I understood. You cannot live deeply if your attention is shallow. Stoics didn't own smartphones, of course, but their wisdom cuts through time. They warned against the greatest thief of all, not death, but distraction. Marcus Aurelius, ruler of the Roman Empire, had more demands on his time than most of us could imagine. Yet he reminded himself in Meditations, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about others." It is not what others do that should trouble you, but what you do with your own time. He knew that attention is the soul's most sacred offering, and every moment we give away thoughtlessly is a piece of our life we never get back. So, how do we protect our time in a world that constantly pulls at it? We begin by becoming selective, not with bitterness, but with intention. The simple life is not empty, it is focused. It asks, what is truly worth your time today? Who deserves your full presence? What task, though small, will bring depth instead of just motion? Seneca, again, offers insight. People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy. We lock our doors at night. We put passwords on our bank accounts. But our calendars, our minds, wide open. We need to treat time as sacred space. Here's something I began practicing: a daily audit at the end of the day. I ask myself, where did my time go today? Did I live today in alignment with what I value, or just react to what was loudest? Some days I see gaps, waste, scattered attention, but that reflection sharpens me. It brings me back to simplicity. Because simple living is not just about doing less, it's about doing what matters more with fuller attention. The Stoics didn't preach idleness. They believed in effort, but meaningful effort. They labored with discipline, not distraction. They spoke with purpose, not noise. They knew that every hour given to what does not matter is stolen from what does, and this discipline of attention is where the deeper meaning begins to take root. Let me offer a modern metaphor. Imagine your time as a garden. Each day, you are given a handful of seeds moments. You can scatter them carelessly on stone, letting them bounce and vanish into nothing. Or you can plant them with care. A quiet breakfast with no phone, a walk without music, a conversation where you truly listen, a task done not quickly but completely. These are not grand acts, but over time, they create a life of depth, not just density, because, in the end, we don't remember most of what we rushed through. We remember the things we gave our full self to. So ask yourself not just now, but every day, what is worth your time? What deserves your undivided attention? And what can you gently let go of to make space for what truly matters? You do not need more time. You need to value the time you already have. You need to protect it not with force, but with purpose. That is the essence of Stoic simplicity, not retreating from the world, but choosing how to engage with it deliberately, because when your time is guarded, your life becomes sacred, and in that space, meaning begins to bloom. Living with intention, the daily practice of purposeful living. A man wakes up, checks his phone, answers messages, drinks coffee while reading the news, rushes to work, glides from meeting to meeting, eats lunch in a blur, scrolls through social media on breaks, returns home, watches a show, then collapses into bed. Another day, gone. And the strangest part, he might not remember a single moment of it. This, the Stoics would say, is a life lived without intention, a life on autopilot. And while it may appear full, productive, even successful, it lacks one essential ingredient: presence. It is motion, without meaning. Action without awareness. But what if we chose to live differently? Not by doing more, but by doing less, but better. Less mindless activity, less noise, less chasing, and more intention with every breath, every word, every step, is what the Stoics called living according to nature. Not nature as in trees and mountains, but our true nature as rational, conscious beings capable of reflection, virtue, and choice. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you seek tranquility, do less, or more precisely, do what's essential," which brings a double satisfaction: doing less, and doing it well. This is the heart of Stoic simplicity, not just a minimalist aesthetic, but a focused life rooted in purpose. Let me take you back to a turning point in my own journey. There was a week when everything seemed to lines, expectations, noise. One morning, overwhelmed, I sat at my desk and asked myself not what I had to do, but why I was doing any of it. And that question cracked something open, because the truth was, much of what filled my life had no root in intention. It was habit, obligation, ego. I wasn't living, I was reacting. So I made a decision. For 1 week, I would live with full intention, that every action needed a reason. Every task had to reflect a value I believed in, and if it didn't, it had to go. That week changed me, not because I did less, but because I felt more alive in everything I did. That is the Stoic way, to bring the fire of attention to each moment, to move slowly enough to see clearly, to choose not just what you do, but who you become by doing it. Now you may ask, how do I start living with intention? It begins in the smallest places. 1. Begin your day with clarity. The Stoics believed mornings were sacred. Marcus Aurelius, despite ruling an empire, often began his day by writing in his journal, reminding himself of his principles before the world could distract him. You can do the same. When you wake, don't rush, don't scroll. Instead, pause and ask, what do I value today? What kind of person do I want to be in this moment? Write it down, say it aloud, make it real. Because when intention comes first, distraction loses its grip. 2. Say no with purpose. Simplicity demands boundaries. Seneca once warned of a life fragmented by too many obligations. So many men waste their lives because they are always at the service of others' desires. A Stoic doesn't say yes to everything. He says yes to what aligns with virtue, duty, and peace, and lets go of the rest. This is not selfish. It is wise. Protect your energy like it is sacred, because it is. 3. Anchor yourself in the present. One of the greatest enemies of intention is time travel, not the science fiction kind, but the mental drifting into futures we can't control and pasts we can't change. The Stoics taught the present moment is the only place we can live. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Living with intention means coming back again and against you now. So when you eat fully. When you listen deeply. When you walk, feel the ground beneath your feet. Let each moment be complete in itself, not a stepping stone to something else. 4. Reflect daily. At the end of the day, the Stoics turned inward, not to shame themselves, but to grow. Epictetus encouraged this practice. Ask yourself, what did I do well? What could I have done better? Where did I act without reason? 5 minutes, that's all it takes. But in those 5 minutes, a life is shaped, because growth begins not with ambition but with awareness. Let me pause and offer you this image. Imagine a craftsman in a quiet workshop. He doesn't rush, he doesn't multitask. Every cut, every stroke, every choice is guided by intention, though not because he wants to finish quickly, but because he wants his work to mean something. Your life is that craft, and the world will try to rush you. It will offer shortcuts, distractions, noise, but you can choose another way, the Stoic way, the way of intention, where you do fewer things, but each thing with your full presence, where you speak less but every word holds weight, where your days are not filled with motion, but with meaning. That is the daily practice, not a one-time decision but a rhythm, a way of waking up each morning and saying, today I will live deliberately. Today I will choose what matters. Today I will live not by accident, but by design. And when you do this not once, but every day, you begin to experience the true gift of simplicity. A life where less is not a loss, but a path to something far more profound. Letting go the courage to release what no longer serves. There is a story told of a man crossing a wide river on foot. The current is strong, the wind fierce. He clutches a heavy bag against his chest, filled with stones he picked up along the way. At first, the weight is manageable, but as the river deepens, the burden drags him down. He stumbles, sinks, gasping, flailing. He has 2 choices: cling to the weight, or let it go. That man, my friend, is you, is me, and the river. It is life. We all carry stones. Some we picked up intentionally: ambition, reputation, status. Others were handed to us: expectations, guilt, regret, fear. And the paradox is, the more we carry, the less we move, the less we breathe, the less we live. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew that freedom doesn't come from having more, it comes from needing less. And often, what we need most is to let go. Epictetus said, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. But letting go is not easy, is it? Because the things we carry are not just physical objects, they are identities, they are comfort zones, they are stories we've told ourselves for years. So what does it mean to let go the Stoic way? It means to unchain yourself from anything that keeps you from virtue. That it means to surrender not from weakness, but from wisdom. It means to release the illusion of control and embrace the clarity of truth. Let me tell you a personal story. A few years ago, I built a life that looked impressive from the outside. Busy schedule, good income, recognition, but inside I felt hollow. Why? Because I had chained myself to an identity that no longer reflected who I truly was. The turning point came during a quiet evening walk. I remember the breeze, the trees, the silence, and in that stillness, a question arose. What are you afraid to let go of? The answer came like a whisper, the need to prove yourself. That night I cried, not from sadness, but release, and slowly, I began to unbuild the life I had outgrown. I said no more often. I deleted old goals. I distanced myself from people who only saw the mask. That it was terrifying, and yet it was the most peaceful I had ever felt, because I had returned to what the Stoics always pointed toward: simplicity, authenticity, alignment. Now I ask you, what are you still holding on to? Is it a job that drains your soul? A toxic friendship that clings out of habit? An identity that no longer fits the person you are becoming? Stoicism invites you to ask this question not once, but often. And when the answer is clear, it gives you the courage to act. 3 areas the Stoics teach us to let go. 1. Let go of the uncontrollable. This is the foundation of all Stoic wisdom. Some things are up to us, and some are not. Epictetus can't control what others think. You can't control outcomes. You can't control the past, or even the next 5 minutes of the future. So why do we waste so much energy trying to imagine carrying a backpack filled with every disappointment, every mistake, every missed opportunity? Now imagine setting it down. What would that feel like? Freedom, lightness, breath. Letting go of control doesn't mean giving up, it means showing up fully in the present, with clarity and courage. 2. Let go of excess desire. Seneca once warned of the torment caused by endless craving. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor. A Stoic doesn't strive to own the world. He seeks to master himself. This means letting go of the need to impress, the hunger for luxury, the endless chase of more. Because behind every desire lies a hidden fear. I am not enough, but the Stoics would say you already are. And the moment you stop chasing is the moment you start living. Point 3. Let go of identity attachments. This may be the hardest of all. We spend years building a sense of self, but what if that self is built on fear, pride, or illusion? The Stoics challenge us. Are you living by nature, or by narrative? You are not your job. You are not your followers. You are not even your achievements. You are a soul, capable of virtue, wisdom, kindness, and resilience, and sometimes becoming more of who you are means releasing who you no longer need to be. Let me offer you this metaphor. You are a tree in autumn. Leaves begin to fall not because the tree is dying, but because it is preparing for a deeper life beneath the surface. Letting go is not an end. It is a transition. It is how nature renews itself. And you are no different. When you let go of the unnecessary, you make room for the essential. When you clear away the noise, you begin to hear your own voice. And when you stop grasping, begin receiving. So today, I invite you to take inventory. Look gently at your life and ask, what am I clinging to out of fear? What story am I ready to rewrite? What weight am I finally strong enough to release? You may not have all the answers now. That's okay. What matters is the willingness to ask. Because a simple life is not built overnight. It is by layer, choice by choice, breath by breath, and in that simplicity you will discover something extraordinary. Not a smaller life, but a deeper one. Not emptiness, but clarity. Not lack, but meaning. The Stoics didn't just teach us to endure life. They taught us to refine it until only the essential remains. A life of meaning, not clutter. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine your life not as it is, but as it could be. Not louder, faster, bigger, but quieter, lighter, deeper. You wake up without dread, because your day is not dictated by noise, but guided by intention. You sit in silence not because you are bored, but because you have discovered the joy of stillness. You are no longer haunted by what you lack. You are grateful for what you already have. This is the essence of a Stoic life, not the life of a hermit or a monk, but the life of a soul in harmony with nature, with virtue, with itself. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. We waste it chasing approval. We waste it collecting things we don't need. We waste it fearing loss, when loss is simply life making space for truth." A simple life is not passive. It is powerful, because it removes what distracts us, so we can focus on what transforms us. Think of the lives of the great Stoics. Epictetus, who had nothing but his mind yet became one of the most liberated men in history. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by gold and power yet longed for a humble life, guided by reason and service. Seneca, who tasted both wealth and exile yet learned to live deeply, not widely. They remind us it is not about how much you hold in your hands, it is about how much peace you hold in your heart. So now, I turn the question to you, dear listener. What kind of life are you building? Are you crafting a temple to your values, or a cage built from distraction and desire? Look around. Does your home reflect your mind? Is it cluttered, chaotic, overwhelmed, or does it breathe with space, purpose, clarity? Simplicity is not aesthetic, it is spiritual. That it is the refusal to be ruled by impulse. It is the courage to say enough. It is the daily practice of choosing essence over excess, and the rewards, they are not loud, they won't earn applause, but they are profound. A quiet joy in doing less, but doing it well. A renewed presence in each moment. A deep alignment between what you believe and how you live. The Stoic life is not about refinement, not denial but discernment that asks you what matters, what lasts, what leads to virtue, and then it gives you the strength to choose that again and again. Even when the world screams for more, even when fear whispers that you're falling behind, even when silence feels uncomfortable, you will choose simplicity. Because now, you know, simplicity is not less, it is more of what truly matters. It is not empty. It is full of meaning. It is not a retreat, it is a return to yourself. So today, start small, clear one drawer. Cancel one commitment that drains you. Say no to one desire that doesn't serve your soul, and in that small act you will feel it. The quiet dignity of a life lived with clarity. The gentle power of self-mastery. The first breath of a simpler, more meaningful existence. Let the world rush. Let it crave, accumulate, exhaust. You will walk slower, live deeper, and leave behind not noise, but wisdom. This is the Stoic secret to a simple life. Not a path away from the world, but a way through it, with grace, courage, and meaning. Now go live it. Fade out. Soft instrumental. Music. Image of Epictetus quote on screen. He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. Epic